Hi and welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about December and our summer fish. We are talking about our diamonds and our giant sand sharks. Now on our south coast we love hooking giant sand sharks, and most of the time they cut us off, so we are undergunned or we are overgunned. But using the right tackle we can actually get better bites and we can land these fish. Now the tackle that I have is a 135 7x7 cable, which is absolutely soft, so it gives us almost a natural feel in the water, which won't make our bait sit on the base. We're fishing with 90 BKK, which is one of the best hooks in the market. And then for power swivel, I like to use the number 3 power swivel as an all-round power swivel. I use it for my trace. I also use it for the sinker. You can go slightly smaller like the 4 or 5 on your sinker, but I feel sometimes a little bit too small. It kinks the wire and makes the wire go like a spring, so I try to use a number 3 at most of the time. We're also going to be making our dangles, and I'm going to show you guys how to make a dangle with Dacron. Now Dacron is soft, so we don't have too much of interference when it comes to making our bait. I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that. If you guys can get a thicker Dacron, will be a little better. I'll show you how exactly I double this here and I make my dangle out of Dacron. Let's start with our trace. So basically what I like to do is I like to use about 1 meter of cable. Now remember, when it comes to cable, this is called a full metal jacket trace. Now when it comes to cable, I like to get about at least 1 meter or a little more. Our trace is not going to be so long, so what I like to do is I like to hold the part like this. This is about 1 meter. I like to take a little bit more. I'll tell you why, because once we start making our knots, this is actually going to get a little shorter. So I like to start with my hook first, because I can determine on how long my trace would be. And it's important because your trace should be to the correct length of about 40 centimeters. As you can see, I am binding the cable on the shank of the hook, and it is so important on which way we go out. So if you can see, this is very close, and the reason for that is when I'm done with it, what I do is I put a lighter on it to melt the plastic so they all join together and they don't get loose. This cable is very soft, so it's hard to keep it together. Now as you can see, what I did was I came from the back of the hook. Now with the circle, it is so important to come from the back of the hook because we need our circle to actually do that. Did you see that? Now when a fish takes the bait, it's coming in here, so it grabs the bait in the mouth. We don't want the hook to go the wrong direction. So as the fish swims away from us, look at that. Our hook is actually turning into the fish, not turning out. I've seen so many guys that put this cable on the wrong side, and that's one of the reasons why so many guys are losing fish on a circle. A circle is almost 100% guaranteed hookup. So all we need to do is just put a sinker on it, just to mount that up. Pull that nice and tight. Sorted. Then what I like to do is cut a small piece of heat shrink. All this you can get from a tackle store, every single bit of it. So you don't need to go into 10 different stores, just from one. You can leave the sinker on to help you. Don't buy an oversized heat shrink where it might pose a problem. So that's perfect. I need to drop this down, burning my fingers out, having a braai. Okay, just a little bit of heat. Definitely not a smoker. There we go. Fixed up. So, one of the first parts of our trace, our hook, sorted. Now, this piece in the back here can be trimmed off, but to me, it serves no purpose, so it's fine the way it is. Now, to the important part. A lot of guys put a crimp in here, and I will show you exactly what I do and why I don't put a crimp. Remember, putting a crimp in, we need a cutters or we need a pliers. And by pressing onto this crimp, we're actually snipping our cable. And then we're going to go and tell our friends, hey, we hooked a fish that's so big. So what I do is determining on how long I want to make the trace. Now remember, this trace also depends on what the sea conditions are like. If the sea is flat and there's not much waves, then you don't need to make this long. This can actually be a bit short. Okay, so what I do is I get about 40 centimeters and I make a knot. It's a very simple knot. See, I went with the circle, I went 2 times inside, and now I'm not locking it, as you can see. I'm making it to my desired size. There we go. So that's my trace line. It's about 40 centimeters. And all you do is just pull it tight. Look at that. Locked. Done. It's a simple figure 8. Right. Then what I do is, to protect that figure 8, I'm putting in a bead and I'm putting a swivel. This is the same number 3 power swivel that I showed you guys earlier. And remember that this is a running trace, semi-running trace. Now, why I like to use a semi-running trace is sometimes we're not fishing with a cone, we're actually fishing with a wire sinker, and the sinker is going to be buried, and as the fish takes off, if this is sitting like this right here, the fish is going to take off, and before we can get ready to set that hook, the fish is going to feel that strain and it's going to leave the bait. So we actually are giving ourselves about 600 more for the fish to go down and we can set the hook in. So I always like to fish with a semi-running trace, and semi-running meaning it's not running all the way, it's only running till here. And then we add in our second swivel. Now this is our trace, it's almost done. Here, because we're fishing with such a soft wire, it's so easy to tie a figure 8. So this is how I do it. I go 1 wrap, I hold it with my thumb, I go the second wrap, I also grab that with my thumb, and then just pull that down in there, open it out, and there we have it, figure 8. It's always very, very important to lubricate. Even though it's a cable, what happens is if it runs dry, you can either pull off the plastic from the cable. I am not pressing on these cutters. I'm just holding the power swivel and I'm just locking in the knot. As you can see, watch that. That just pulled tight. There we go. Figure 8 done. Now this can be cut off and it does not need to be left long. Remember, if this is going to be left long, then it could cause an interference if you're fishing with braid or if you've got a shock leader. This can actually catch onto that and cause a problem. So we don't want that. This will never open. So this is locked into place. And then just to make yourself extra comfortable, heat up that plastic and grab this quickly and just hold it tight so that the plastic melts. I have never had a hook pull, never, or this not slipping in any way. So this is our full metal jacket trace. It's actually, I'd say, about 1.2 meters. This can be longer if you want to target a blackfin or a raggy. Remember, the raggies can chew up. Sometimes you can go 1.5 meters and still bite you off. But anyways, this works perfect. You can use them for raggies, for diamonds, for sand sharks, for gray sharks. So this trace is my to-go trace. I use this trace for my gray sharks. I use them for my sand sharks. I use them for raggies. I use them for the diamonds. It's an all-round trace. You don't need to have 100 traces in your bag. This is the trace. Now, you can either scale up or you can scale down on the hook size and obviously on the cable. But using a 7x7 wire, it makes the trace so soft. You don't need to actually use thinner wire. This is perfect. On my coastline, I'm from the Pakreni, Scottsboro area, and all my gray sharks, all my bigger sharks, I'm using this, not in the sardine run. I do not use this in sardine run. I will show you all another video on exactly what trace I use in the sardine run. This is specifically for our gray sharks, our summer fish, and even our browns. Perfect trace. Perfect trace. And also, you can be targeting one species and you will hook something else. So, our to-go trace. Thank you guys for watching and stay tuned. The next one's going to be about our dangle.